Hello, everyone. Welcome back to This Might Be TMI But. And where have I been? I've been applying to med school. Very exciting, but not for you guys because I haven't been putting out any podcast episodes. So today I'm going to be talking about a little show called Sex and the City. And thank you, Maya, my friend from my last episode, for giving me this idea because I wanted like a fun way to transition back into these podcast episodes. And I have a lot of thoughts on this show and about dating in general, and so I thought it would be interesting to talk about it a little bit. Sex and the City is about 4 women, Carrie, Charlotte, Samantha, and Miranda, who all live in New York City, and they're all very successful women. It takes place in the late 90s and early 2000s, and the women are in their 30s, and they're kind of just dating, living their life, thinking about if they want to get married, and just generally navigating like romance and sex life and all of that. And the reason why they're doing this and why the show is kind of about this is because Carrie, the main character of the show, she writes for a column in a magazine. It's called Sex and the City. That's the name of the column. And each episode kind of talks about a different aspect of dating and her friends' journeys through dating and finding themselves and all of that stuff. So I'm going to give a little bit of a background on all of the ladies, and I'm going to try and talk about the show without giving too many spoilers because I really do think you guys should watch it. All of my sort of commentary is going to be an aside, kind of like a expansion into our modern world, but I'll try not to talk about the actual show too much, but I'll talk about some of the dynamics, like the really important ones. So Carrie is our main character. She's kind of like wild, I would say. She's very confused. Like, that's one of the words I would like use to describe her. She's like 30 something, like early 30s when we begin this show, and as I said, she's a writer. Kind of her main love interest throughout this show is this guy named Big. He's like a rich man for undisclosed reasons. I don't know if he ever learned why he's rich, and if so, it's kind of like skirted over. But he's just like a rich man, just think like really, really rich. And they end up kind of in like a 6-year long situationship. Like, they are like the OG definition of a situationship. And it's like disgusting, and I hate them as a couple, and I'm going to talk a little bit about them, but you really need to watch everything that goes down because this is ridiculous. Anyways, next is Charlotte, which is kind of the opposite of a situationship girly. Like, she loves herself a commitment. Like, she wants to be married, she wants to have children, she wants the traditional life. And I love her for it. Like, she always knows what she wants, and she's not afraid to stick up for herself, and she knows her worth. But she's also very kind, and sometimes she can be treated as a little naive in the show, which I kind of think is a problem. But anyway, next is Miranda. She is the career girl. So she works as a lawyer. Miranda is like anti-romance. Like, she does not believe some man is going to come sweep her off her feet. She ends up like getting married to this guy at the end, but like she doesn't want to wear a wedding dress. She doesn't want to get married in a church. She doesn't want anything, like whatever. She's very like career oriented, and the sort of downside of her is that she's very cynical. Like, she can be a hater, which I respect because I'm also a hater, but she's a hater in times where, like, sometimes you don't need to be hated. And the last woman, which I would argue is my favorite character on the show, her name is Samantha. She owns her own PR firm, and she is like the party girl, which I think is very interesting because she is the oldest out of all the characters. She's like a few years older than all of the girls, and she loves to just, she loves to explore her sexuality. She knows everybody. She's the talk of the town. She's very confident, but she's afraid of commitment. Like, she is like the girl version of a male F-boy. But like, she's like cute with it. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm obsessed with her. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about is a little bit about the different relationship dynamics kind of at play within the show, and specifically about Carrie's relationship with Big and how I think that reflects kind of modern dating. So Carrie meets Big, and at first she's kind of nonchalant, but then she very much becomes obsessed. And Big does not want commitment with Carrie. For one reason or another, he's very elusive about the whole commitment thing. She'll like she tries to leave a toothbrush at his house and he's like, what is that for? Or, she tries to do something sweet for him and he's like kind of unreceptive. And it's kind of like this push and pull, will they, won't they sort of thing. But that's a situationship. And they do this for 6 years at their big old age. And I just think it's ridiculous. I won't reveal the ending, but I will reveal that at a point, Big gets married and Carrie has an affair with Big, while she's also in a relationship. So she's dating this guy named Aiden, and she cheats on him with Big while he's married. And it's like this whole thing because Aiden is just like the antithesis of Big. Aiden wants commitment. Aiden wants kids. Aiden wants to move in with Carrie. He buys her apartment and the apartment next to her apartment, and they're gonna like tear down the wall and just like, he's all in. Loves her to death, and she cheats on him. And you may be asking yourself, why the heck would this girl cheat on Aiden? Because Aiden is like everything that quote unquote a girl would want, everything that Carrie quote unquote would want, because doesn't Carrie want commitment with Big? And that's exactly the answer. Carrie only wants commitment with Big. Carrie is so afraid of committing with someone else because she's holding out on this guy Big. And I think it's for a few reasons. One, because I think Carrie is kind of obsessed with the elusiveness of Big and of his nonchalantness. And, people always want what they can't have. Carrie, whenever someone brings up being committed with her, gets very, very paralyzed and very, very scared. Perhaps it's because, like, Carrie, I don't know, maybe she believes she's not worthy of, like, a clean love. Like, it has to be this struggle. It has to be this, will they, won't they thing. Maybe it's because she's a writer. She wants this, like, dramatic story behind it all. I don't know. She does someone extremely wrong who loves her so, so much and is willing to give her everything that Big is not willing to give her. And I think another aspect of it is that Big gets married. He ghosts her, and he goes and gets married to this random girl. Carrie finds out, and Carrie is not doing very well. And when she meets the girl is like the opposite of Carrie. Opposite, I mean in like the white way. Everyone in this show is white. Carrie, like, if I can describe her to you, she's like this really skinny blonde woman with like very curly hair. She's kind of fun and wild and free. She wears big patterns and, she's a writer and, all of this stuff. She likes to go out and party. And the girl that Big marries in the show and then cheats on Carrie with her, her name is Natasha, and she is like a Ralph Lauren model vibe. She works at Ralph Lauren in the show, but like, she's like a Ralph Lauren girl. Like, you can imagine her with the sweater and like the nice pants, the nice linen pants, and she has dark brown hair that's straightened and perfect, and she comes from money, and she's just kind of everything that Carrie is not. And I think that is also a reason why Carrie flips out, is because she's like, what is it in this girl, Natasha, that made you want to marry her when we have been talking for years and years and years and you did not want to marry me? And the gag is, guys, if you ever find yourself in this situation, he does not want you. Even if he comes back, he does not want you. And he never wanted you. And you should not have to like question your self-worth and your value and like what you bring to the table. It just means he does not want you. He may want you for the fun, but he does not want to marry you. And that's kind of what I learned from Sex and the City and from like, TikTok and all that stuff, that like, you shouldn't like I think that the right person for you, you shouldn't have to beg and plead them to want to be with you or to choose you or to choose commitment with you. I feel like it should be a pretty natural and easy process. It shouldn't be like this game of like, how can I become the person that this individual wants me to be? It should just be that like, I am myself and that is enough for this person, and they've chosen me and I've chosen them. And I think that is how it should go. But that is not how it went in Sex and the City. That's not how it went at all. And I think one of the most frustrating parts of watching sort of a situationship go down is that whenever something is happening with Carrie and Big, everybody has to hear about it all the time. And she neglects her friends, which is, I think, to me, it's very frustrating because it's like, girl, come on, get it together. Like, you have friends that are also going through very real problems, and you need to be better for them. And like, you shouldn't be putting your friends through this up and down, always bringing a big, like, he becomes almost a Voldemort to them. Like, it just becomes this whole thing. I think that is very common in friendships, is that like, you see a person in like a toxic situationship or like a toxic relationship, and they just keep on going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And as a friend, you know, we try to be like there for them, and we try to be like, you know, girly, it's okay, like blah blah blah, that guy doesn't deserve you. But it can get a little bit exhausting to watch, even on a show, this person going back to this guy over and over again, even though everyone is advising against it. And it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And she also kind of loses a sense of self around Big. Like, when she's around her friends, she's very assertive. She knows what she wants. She's very flirty, fun, and fresh. And then as soon as she gets around Big, she's like crumbles into like some dust or something like that. Like, girl, grow a backbone. And it's so frustrating to watch. And I like thought to myself, like, have I been like that before? Like, when I've dated in the past? And the answer is yes. Yes. Because I feel like everyone has. Like, you know, I'm talking about Carrie in this way, but I think like my main frustration with her is that I'm like, you could have worked this out when you were a little younger. But I am that younger. And so I think like in my past, you know, in my past like dating life, I really did give up parts of myself for the people that I wanted to date. Like, I either felt like I had to dim myself, or, you know, I changed my personality to better fit theirs, or I let people, you know, run over me, like do me wrong, and I went back, and it was like very frustrating for everyone involved. And I just like think to myself, like, why did I do that? And it was because I really thought that like I was undesirable, like no one wanted me. And where does that come from? I think that when a majority of like these like negative sort of dating experiences happened, I was in a place where I was still really trying to find myself and figure out how I felt about myself. What did I enjoy doing? How did I perceive myself? How did I want to be perceived? And I really wasn't happy with like who I was. And so to me, it felt almost natural to be kind of a chameleon in relationships, because it felt like, okay, if I'm scared that people are not going to accept me if I am who I naturally am, then maybe I can become someone else. And as long as someone loves me, then that means that like this personality is okay, or I have the approval. And I think that may be also what happens with Carrie. Like, she kind of becomes this like chameleon of a person, because she's like, okay, like Big didn't like who I was, so maybe I should become someone else. And I think maybe she's just like sort of seeking that approval from Big, and that's why things don't work out with like Aiden, and that's why she cheats on him, because he was willing to accept her as she was, and she thought that was a problem or something. So yeah, and I want to talk about the character of Big. Big is like Captain Nonchalant. If there was a ship of the nonchalant men, Big would be the head of the nonchalant ship. And it's ridiculous. I recently saw a TikTok, which is my source for a lot of these sort of things that I'm going to be quoting. And it was of a girl who was on like a dating app or something. And she took a screenshot of all of these men at their big old ages of like 35, 38, 40 something, being like, you know, when you can put like your relationship type, it was like short term, open to long. What are you talking about? What are you still trying to figure out my dating goals? Get out of my face. Get out of my face. And I just think that is so ridiculous. Like, I think that's fine, like maybe when you're young or whatever, I don't know. But when you're maxing out your 401k contribution every year, I really feel like you need to get it together in other aspects of your life, aka your dating life. What do you mean you don't know what you want and you're 38? Like, I don't get that. Anyway. And so I think that all those men would also be on the nonchalant ship. And why do I think that nonchalant ship? I don't know what dating was like back in the 90s and early 2000s, obviously. But I really do feel like we're on a rise with the nonchalant men. There's a nonchalant epidemic. And why do I believe that there's an epidemic? And I will blame social media and dating apps. And why will I do this? Because, like, it's the idea that, like, now there is, like, a plethora, a quote-unquote plethora of women for men to choose from. And so there's no need for commitment, because if you go through enough dates, they're going to find someone who matches the nonchalantness that they want. Or like they're going to find a girl who's willing to, settle for that level of non-commitment. And I might be sounding very reductive and very much like, why can't a woman also be nonchalant? Blah, 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 blah. And women can be nonchalant. Women can be nonchalant, but that has to be like truly what that person wants. I'm trying to separate like identifying that what you want isn't like non-commitment and being vocal about that and, being upfront about that versus leading someone on for a 6-year situationship like Mr. Big did. And I think a lot of people in our generation are having a hard time doing the first thing, which is voicing what you want. And so I'm going to give a few of my dating tips. When I used to go on dates, depending on what stage of life I was, whether or not I was looking for commitment or not, I would talk about that on the first date. With my first date with my boyfriend, I was like, so what are you looking for? And he said to me the dreaded words, I'm just trying to figure it out, like, go with the flow and figure. And I was like, that's not going to work. Like, what do you actually want? And he was really taken aback by that, not gonna lie, but he did answer the question truthfully and honestly. And I think that really set the tone for what our relationship was going to be like. If you want a question to be answered, like, if you have a question for the person you're going out on a date with, ask that question and do not stop questioning them until you get the answer that you want. Because a lot of people don't want to really be upfront with their feelings because they're afraid of like, what if I upset this person on the date? What if it doesn't work out? Well, then it doesn't work out and it's fine. But you have to be upfront about what you want. So for example, if you just want a nonchalant relationship, I don't want anything. I don't think I'm going to want anything for however long now and blah, blah, blah. And if that person is not aligned with your goals and your values, do not see them again. It's as simple as that. If we're going to treat, the world as if there are so many fishes in the sea, let the fish go. If you guys are not aligned on your values, if you guys are not aligned in what you guys want, and you guys are not willing to work together towards a common goal, if, for example, one person is like, I'm not open at all to a relationship, blah, 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 blah. And the other person is like, I really want to be in a relationship, stop seeing each other. Like, do not continue seeing that person in the hopes that one day they are going to change their mind or whatever. And I think that can be hard for a lot of people because, a lot of people don't treat dating as like, I have a lot of fish in the sea. I think a lot of people are hesitant to meet a lot of people. And so they're like, okay, if I'm meeting this person and I like them, what if I don't find another person like that? But so what I'm trying to say is that there's a unique balance between there's a lot of fish in the sea mindset versus like, let me put all my eggs in one basket mindset. And I think we need to toe a very, very thin line. And the way to toe that line is open communication. And if someone is not willing to have an open and honest conversation with you about what they want and how they feel, then that is like the penultimate sign to leave the situation. Because what you don't want is to be like Carrie, who was in a relationship with a very loving man, and she didn't want the commitment of getting married or anything like that. And she cheats on Aiden with Big, this married man, and ruins a whole marriage, and she ruins her whole relationship, and both of them ended up unhappy after that, and like they ruined the lives of two people, innocent people who had nothing to do with their personal issues. The next thing I want to talk about is whiteness and desirability and why I think that people are panicking these days. I was on TikTok and I saw this girl on a podcast talking about how Megan Thee Stallion is now dating her man. I don't remember who the man is. He's irrelevant. And so the girl, she was white, and she was like, yeah, like he's dating Megan. Like, you are not about to play in my face and act like you don't know who Megan Thee Stallion is. You're not about to get on this podcast, look us in the camera, and tell us you do not know who Megan Thee Stallion is and you can't pronounce the name Megan. And I was just like appalled. I was beside myself because what do you mean? And so I'm going to talk about these petty antics and why do I think they exist? It's because, my white listeners might not like this very much, but I think that with all of the social media, the downsides are that people are more nonchalant, but the upside is that people are being exposed to cultures at a more frequent rate than they would have in person. So like, let's say someone lives in the middle of Timbuktu or like lives in the middle of like Topeka, Kansas, right? I don't imagine that Topeka, Kansas is the most diverse area, right? And like before, someone in Topeka, Kansas only really saw other people in Topeka, Kansas. But now, Topeka, Kansas person can see all of these beautiful people from all across the world on their little cell phone all the time. You scroll, you scroll, you scroll, you scroll, you scroll. So you're seeing people from all different types of ethnicities, backgrounds, all of this stuff so much more frequently. And I think that is really changing the beauty standard in our modern dating culture. And I think that the people who were quote unquote at the top of that beauty standard are quaking a little bit. Because, for example, if you ask a person these days, who do you think is the hottest woman? They might say Tyla. They'll probably say Tyla. When before, it would not have been Tyla. Because we're now seeing Tyla everywhere. Tyla is beautiful. Tyla is the it girl. And, I think that people who would never have seen a Tyla in real life are seeing Tylas all over social media and all that stuff. And so like now they're more open to dating someone who looks like her and, who might not look like the people who live in their area. And I think that, when people, who are at the top of the beauty standard chain are now experiencing this kind of change, it can be very jolting, and therefore the racism comes out, like not being able to pronounce Megan the Stallion's name, which is Megan the Stallion. So guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I'm not really sure how to conclude it because I kind of just rambled for a little bit, but I hope that it was entertaining to you somewhat, and I hope that you will log in for my next episode. And thank you again, Maya, for this idea for this podcast episode. And I recommend that you all watch Sex and the City to see what I'm talking about with Carrie's relationship with Big. I hope you have a good one. Bye.